Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
In episode 427, Jonathan Royle discusses with us developing the millionaire mindset for success and hypnotically growing your business.
That's why we have a world with health and safety rules these days that didn't exist, and some of that's gone mad. But as long as anyone considering going to see a hypnotist ensures basically that they ask around and use common sense, don't just randomly go to somebody. Find somebody who's actually got provable track record and testimonials from people who are not just, written testimonials on a website. They're actually, so happy with the service they got wherever they went that they were happy to record a video, because written things can be made up. A video and ideally a link to the person's social media so you can see they're a real person. Do a bit of
Talking with the Experts.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org. Do you love your podcast and dislike the editing and uploading to the various platforms? Would you like to spend this time with your family and friends or work on your business? Podcast editing doesn't have to be a chore. Talking with the Experts partners with podcasters who need help with audio and content editing. If you'd like to know more, contact me, Rose Davidson, using the link showing now, or send me a private message. Hello, welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Now, my next guest is a little bit scary. I have to be careful not to stare into his eyes because Jonathan Royle is a certified and celebrity hypnotist. He's a master NLP hypnosis trainer and presenter, and he is dangerous. He's dangerous. His stage name is Jonathan Royle, and under that name, he is the author of Hypnosis, the ultimate self-help book, helping readers to get over the shit in their life and to get their shit together. Oh, he's going to be my favorite guest of all times. I love it. He was bullied as a child and led to suicide attempts due to being the odd one out, having been born in the circus and making his stage debut at age 3 as Britain's youngest paid circus clown, and having ginger hair did not help the bullying either. And he has gone on to, better his life and to help others. And our topic really is having the right mindset leads to having the right results. And through his experience of hypnotically positively manipulating people's emotions and thoughts as a hypnotist, he helps them to, he has helped them to prove invaluable tools and techniques to help others. That was a very long introduction, Jonathan. Thank you for joining me and listening and waiting for me to babble on like a silly girl.
Hey, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Rose.
I hope you're well.
I'm good, thanks. It's not dangerous, right? Okay. Anything on this, just get that out of the way straight away. Everything on this planet has potential dangers, okay? So that's why we have a world with health and safety rules these days that didn't exist, and some of that's gone mad. But as long as anyone considering going to see a hypnotist ensures basically that they ask around and use common sense, don't just randomly go to somebody. Find somebody who's actually got provable track record and testimonials from people who are not just, written testimonials on a website. They're actually, so happy with the service they got wherever they went that they were happy to record a video, because written things can be made up. A video, and ideally a link to the person's social media so you can see they're a real person. Do a bit of due diligence, and then you'll be fine, because obviously this will be a person who's got a proven track record and has been trained properly. As long as you do that.
Sorry, yeah, as long as you do that, yeah, you're fine. And really don't trust just anybody. Yeah, I get that.
Exactly.
And it can be very dangerous to your mental health, for sure.
Actually, no, not really. The actual only real dangers as such from the therapeutic side of things is probably more so from the point of view of someone who's not properly trained, or someone who's been trained in outdated methods, having you come back week after week or every couple of weeks or whatever, and just taking way too long to deal with things, and having you, if they're using really old outdated techniques, perhaps reliving again and again unnecessarily past traumas in a way that I refer to it as being unnecessary mind rape.
Yeah,
that's where the danger is. It wouldn't actually make the matter worse, as such. It would probably ultimately end up helping the person eventually, but there is no need for things to be so long and drawn out. Years ago, people thought that was the case. It seemed to be the case, but over the past 40, 30, 20, 10 years, as we got closer to the present day, with each passing year, there's been discoveries made that, a phobia or a fear is instilled quite often as quickly as that. It's one initial event as quickly as that. And then over time, you kind of mind, if this is the first incident down here, your mind kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's an upturned pyramid, so a triangle upside down. Down here, the point is the first incident. And over time, every time you see the trigger, let's say it's a fear of spiders, every time you see a spider, your mind goes, spider, filing cabinet of the mind. Oh yeah, I'm scared of these things, and creates the emotion, which causes you to react. Except each time you do it, it's like a rehearsal, and you get better at being scared. And so the pyramid builds up to, you've got this big upturned upside down on the point pyramid, but that's unbalanced. It's all rooted in this one little point, and it only takes a bit of a push for that to tip over, is what's now been discovered, and smash into oblivion, so it doesn't bother you anymore, because it's been, your imagination has enhanced something that was very small, very real at the time. I'm not dismissing it, but it was very real at the time, but very small. And then with each time, the memories reconstructed it, and the mind, and amplified it, thinking it's protecting you, but it's a complete illusion. And it is actually incredibly, phobias are one of the easiest things to deal with, which for anyone watching or listening to this with a phobia, they'll be thinking, really? The amount, but when you're ready to let go of it and say goodbye, they are one of the easiest things to deal with, because they are founded on a tiny speck of what may have seemed traumatic at the time. But quite often when you speak to people with phobias, they either don't know why it started, or if they do know, and some of them really do think that they do, they'll often say, I know it seems daft why that still bothers me now, but I just can't explain it. Well, I just have done it. It's your mind was much younger, and it's there to protect you. And unfortunately, because of that inbuilt fight, flight, or freeze system that's within us from kind of caveman days, well, we don't live in caveman days anymore. There's not wild animals. Well, there are wild animals. I think they're called politicians and people like that, but not in the way it used to be. So the things that our bodies were naturally wired up, hardwired to protect us against, are not there. So, but we still react to other things in an over-amplified manner because it's not been fine-tuned, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system of the body.
It might be bred out eventually.
It might be. Unfortunately, with the world we seem to be living in, with more and more fear being pushed on people through the legacy mainstream media, and more and more, well, fear again being pushed on people by politicians and high-ranking officials and stuff, all under the guise of climate change or Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals of the World Economic Forum, and all this other stuff that I'm not saying it's nonsense, but to get to their goals and aims in the deadlines that they're looking to do it, they've openly admitted, no conspiracy theories here, it's factually documented. They've openly admitted that they have departments to influence and manipulate public opinion and behaviour. In England, for example, Westminster, where the Houses of Parliament are, they have a team called the Behavioural Insights Team, which is dubbed in the media as the Nudge Unit, because it openly admits that its job is to find ways to psychologically nudge people into thinking and doing what the government want them to do in the aim of the direction of, like the Sustainable Development Goals, for one example, or to believe the way they want, so they're more likely to vote for them, or whatnot. And it's not just in England. America's got a similar thing. In England, the army in the past few years has set up the 77th Battalion, and they've got a website. People, search 77th Battalion, UK Army. It's openly there. They're recruiting, and they openly admit it's to run psychological warfare, psychological operations, as it gets termed on the internet, psyops. These are not conspiracy theories. It's fact the army's got its own section to specialise and deal in it, and they're openly recruiting, and they've been stepping that up on it throughout the pandemic as well. And I know there's a similar, not sure what the battalion's called, but a similar thing in America and in other areas of the world. And I don't want to scare viewers or listeners, but this is ultimately, if this is what is easy to find if you bother to do searches yourself, and it's genuine, it's there, and to the point where they're recruiting quite openly on websites, what is going on that we don't know about? That's one question. And the other is, think of the bigger picture. People go with all that's going on in the world in January 2023, and has been for fast approaching 2 years now, in Russia and Ukraine. And obviously there's other wars going on in different areas of the world, other conflicts. People in the media are going, oh, are we approaching World War III? Well, you know what? On the one level, that's to instill fear into the general populace, to make them more manipulable, as it were. And this has a knock-on effect on business levels as well, because we're here to talk business. And it does have a knock-on effect, not just personally, but on businesses as well. And the truth of the matter is, or at least my perception of it is, and there seems to be a lot of evidence to indicate this way, i.e. setting up all these psychological warfare army divisions around the world, is that World War III is already happening and has been for some time. It's just, it isn't a war of guns and bombs, although they're still held there and mentioned in the media as fear-mongering things. It's psychological operations. It's psychological warfare. It's being done through social media and internet channels, in terms of the mass populace manipulation and deception. And that just has a massive impact, not just on a personal level, but out into business. The world of business has probably changed forever in the past couple of years because of the global pandemic. And if you want to remain in business and be successful and grow and prosper in the brave new world, to use the title of an Aldous Huxley book, which is scaringly seems to have predicted a lot of what's gone on, then you've got to change. Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always got. Or rather, that used to be the case. It's actually more a case now, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're likely to get less than you always previously got because of the changes that have taken place in the world. And that people, older people who you would never have dreamed of being able to get to come to meetings or stuff on this virtually thing we're on now called the internet, as some of the old people call it, the internet, the World Wide Web or whatever, they've now, because they wanted to talk to family and friends during the pandemic, they've got used to the technology. And a whole generation of people who would never have been target customers for selling products or services or anything really via the internet, because they were totally would avoid it, because of circumstances, actually turned into, they've become, through operant social conditioning, through repetition of having to use it over the past couple of years, and now actually potential target customers for a lot of people in terms of reaching them through the internet, where previously they wouldn't have been. So everything's changed, I believe.
Yeah, so how can we hypnotically grow our business and develop a millionaire mindset?
Yeah, well, there's numerous ways, so I'll have to just give you some bullet points, as it were. But the great thing is that there is tons of them in the book, but not just actual written down stuff. There's these things, QR codes, which were one of the great these were one of the great game changers of the pandemic as well. They were brought out years ago, QR codes, the idea of them, scan them, it'll take you to a video or a website, and they just didn't really take off. And then in the pandemic, they started putting these up outside buildings. So you had to scan well, in England, the NHS health.
Yeah, same here. We had to scan to get to the health thing, and register.
Yeah. Everyone's got used to them. Now authors are using them in books to take people to online video content, which is what I'm doing, and they're all over the place. It's how things can suddenly change just because of other things. So yeah, here's the thing. If you want to be the best possible you can be, which you need to be if you want to grow your business, because, if you've got insecurities going on, or your self-confidence or your self-esteem or your self-image are out of sync, out of balance, or you're suffering from so-called imposter syndrome and you've got that little voice in your head saying, I'm doing all right, but I think you probably reached your limit now. You really think you can do that? We've all had it in some kind of degree. If you've got those things going on, then ultimately at some point you're either not going to achieve your full potential, or you are, but because you've got these programs running going, you're not good enough, or negative little doubts creeping in, sooner or later you will self-sabotage it and screw it up. And you may not even be consciously aware that you've done that. You certainly wouldn't be intending to. But if you've got negative programs running, and the thing is, all of us do have negative programs running. It's just we're not consciously aware of it. So this is what you need to do, and it'll just have a boom, massive impact. This might sound a bit bizarre, but from birth, as long as you're not born with a genetic defect or brain damage, generally speaking, and I know there's differences in gender and sex and whatnot, but generally speaking, we're all the same. We all piss and shit, excuse the vulgarity, in the same way. And we are all born as blank canvases to a degree, okay? And then it's through our environmental conditioning, our upbringing, and our experiences in life, particularly from birth until around puberty, mid to late teenage years. Now, Sick Mind Fraud, aka Sigmund Freud, he of kill your father, fuck your mother, Oedipus complex fame, did say a lot about shit crazy things, but one of the things he said was that the formative years are 0 to 7. In my experience, I think it stretches to kind of mid-late teens. And anything that happens in that, we're like a sponge then, we soak everything in, and there's no, the critical faculty, analytical area, or as some people call it, the executive function of the brain, that kind of then acts as the gatekeeper between the conscious and unconscious, metaphorically, doesn't really develop fully, the executive function, till about 20, but still go with mid to late teens, because that's where most things happen. Now, stuff that you as an adult now would possibly laugh at, or you certainly would if someone was to say to you, you know, this incident when you were 3, well, you were at a birthday party and there are all these different coloured balloons and you particularly like the orange one. And in fact, you got hold of it and you wouldn't let anyone near you with it. And then suddenly you fell and it burst. And it was like the world had ended. You were screaming and crying and we couldn't calm you down for a good 10, 15 minutes because you wanted that orange balloon back. It didn't matter whether we tried to give you another, you know, no, you wanted that one. And then suddenly you're all right. Well, that can still be having an effect on you now as an adult if you've not dealt with the imprinting that's gone on into your unconscious, subconscious mind, aka the imagination. It seems a little bit daft. It seems bizarre to say that as an adult. But to the 3-year-old child in that moment, that was as traumatic as you as an adult now losing a loved one, a family member or friend. But as a youngster, we're not equipped to do the grieving process. Now, it sounds daft talking about grieving for a burst balloon, and it does sound daft as an adult, but it isn't daft to the 3-year-old. It wasn't daft to the 3-year-old you, okay? Now, that's just one example. There are hundreds, possibly thousands of what I call mini traumas happen to us all as we're growing up. Now, it's different amounts of mini traumas for everybody, and it's different levels of trauma for everyone. Unfortunately, there's some people out there that have had really off the Richter scale traumas, you know, child abuse, physical violence, daily repetitive bullying at school, which was something that, you know, I had because I was the odd one out, born on a circus, had ginger hair, that's why I kind of shave it. And it led to me just before I was 12, lying down in the middle of the main road in Haywood of winter time when it went dark early, figuring that I don't have to be too graphic, figuring everything would be over soon. And I lay there for what seemed like forever and got fed up in the end and started walking back to the pavement. And in that moment, suddenly, and I felt this draft and heard this whooshing noise and turned, and I saw a big articulated truck had just gone past. And in that moment, well, I both shit myself, but also had a realization moment of there's got to be a better way of dealing with all this. That, in my research, I discovered stories of people who'd tried to commit suicide by jumping out of multi-story buildings. And the people who'd survived such attempts, they all consistently said one thing, that they thought they had so many problems in the world that that's what led them to it as an escape. But the moment they jumped out the window and they're hurling towards the floor, they realised they only had one problem. And that problem was that they just jumped out of a multi-story building. And so you've got to, these things are imprinted as we're growing up, and they might seem daft. And here's the thing. They were traumatic at the time, and to relive them, to say them consciously, that to entertain the idea is almost laughable. But if you were to go through old-fashioned regression psychotherapeutic techniques to uncover these incidences and relive the emotion and release it, which is an old-style way of doing therapy, then in that moment of reliving it, you will be kind of in that state that you were at that time. And that's why I term it as being mind rape, because it would be actually very traumatic. No need to do that. The imprints are there. It's like a computer, metaphorically. All you need are processes that allow you to get past the critical faculty, analytical area, executive function of the mind, lots of different nouns from different arenas for essentially the they're all metaphors because nobody can prove how the brain truly works 100%. There's evidence that says what I'm saying is probably right. There's evidence saying it's wrong. I just go off results. And for well over 3 decades now, using this metaphor and approach has worked for me. So I like to use processes to help people to distract what I think of as being like a nightclub bouncer that says, you're not coming in. Well, to distract that nightclub bouncer so that we can get into the nightclub or personal laptop computer, go in there and delete. Now, I don't mean delete the memories entirely from your unconscious, subconscious, because even if you could do that, it's part of who you are. So no, it shouldn't happen. But to delete any negative emotions, energies, feelings, associations, or anchors that have been pulling you back. Any elements of self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, remorse, fear, anger, frustration, all of that kind of shit, hence shitnosis, because, you know, you put it into context, it's that heavy shit you're walking around with, weighing you down kind of thing, even though you may not consciously be aware of it. And to delete those negative things, so it like unfreezes all those little mini traumas, and they don't affect you anymore. And you effectively, in that moment, that process, actually grow up and become the adult that you were always supposed to be if you've not gone through those mini traumas. Because as human beings, we to operate at a balanced, all of us born as a blank canvas, we'd have to live in the exact identical environment, having the same stimulus every day in order to, and there'd have to be no trauma. It just wouldn't happen.
No, I don't think so.
No, exactly. It wouldn't happen.
Grazed down knee, or, you know, got a blood nose, or got a black eye, or whatever it is, you know.
Something's going to happen. Exactly. It's an impossibility. So that is why you need to do work on yourself to deal with whatever those mini traumas were. Now, as human beings, we all need to feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued. They sound very similar. But if you get a thesaurus and check out those words, loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued, you very quickly then will realize that some apply to self-confidence, some to self-image, some to self-esteem, and some to self-control, aka willpower. So if there's any imbalance in any of those 7 emotional pillars, as I call them, then it will have, and you know, it's going to be different for everyone. Some people have a little bit that's been chipped away in all 7 of them. Some will have one that's really next to nothing, and the others, it's different for everyone. But if there's any imbalance in one or more of them, it will have a negative impact on the person's self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem, self-control. To varying levels, of course, depending on the others, but that will have a negative impact on their self-love, self-worth, self-respect, and positive selfishness, namely having to look after yourself to then be able to look after others. And if there's any imbalance there, that will ultimately impact negatively the person's self-identity. And that will kind of metaphorically create a hole. There'll be something missing. And some people try to fill that hole through eating too much. Some people smoke to cause a smoke screen. Some drink to drown it out and fill it up. Others take drugs of some form to kind of totally escape those feelings of something missing. Some people turn to religion to fill that gap. Some people become gym freaks. There's many ways it can manifest. Other people, it just manifests as being a habit, addiction. It can even be a fear. Phobias. There's so many negative ways it can manifest when there's an imbalance. And those can have a negative effect even in business. You know, someone with a fear of flying, it's not just that they will do things to avoid going on holiday with the family. It can be that, you know, if they're someone who works for a company, that they have to turn down the promotion that would give them a whole bunch more money and opportunities for the family because it involves lots of overseas travel that the shit's scared of. So, you know, although I'm talking about things that are very personal, they do have business connotations as well. And ultimately, the way you feel as a human being is going to impact how well you operate within your business. If you're feeling like shit, not surprisingly, you're more likely to get negative, sales results than when you're feeling on top of the world and invincible. So it is all very relevant. So my work over the past, well, since 1989, because in 1989, when I was 14, in a quest to find answers to stop myself feeling as bad as I did, along that quest, I ended up taking a course in hypnotherapy, and I became at the time the youngest ever member of the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Psychotherapists here in England, set up by a gentleman called Dr. Brian Howard, who's sadly no longer with us. But before he passed away, I was so impressed by the training and the way it helped me and other clients that, kind of like Victor Kiam, that famous electric shaver guy who bought the company, I bought the license and rights, and I now, through my website, ultimatehypnosiscourse.com, teach the original APHP courses that I took all those years ago. And since then, have developed other techniques. Some have got thrown out because they didn't work consistently. And then been able to put them together into this book that I will tell you now has got stuff in it. Some stuff in this book will never be of any use to you, okay, viewer and listener. But 50% of it will. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there are two main types of people. This is stereotyping, I know, but people generally fall into one of these camps more than the other. There's elements in between as well, and that's dealt with in the book, but you'll fall into one of them more than the other. You're either a right brain thinker who is very creative, expressive, and emotional, or you'll be a left brain thinker who's very logical and analytical. And then there's scales in between that, but it's one or the other that you'll favour more.
Yeah, I'm both.
So
I use both at the same time.
Okay, well, that's kind of like well, they call that hemisphere. That's kind of both phases. And again, that's covered in the book, in which case you'd be one of the minority who would get benefit from any of the techniques in the book. But for most people, they'd either have to use the more analytically logical focus techniques or the emotional ones. One set would work better than the other, but the point is, rather than trying to sell you two different books, I put them all in here, which is why in the chapters where there's QR codes, there's more than one QR code, because there's the approach for people who are more logical and there's the approach for people who are more logical, emotional, whichever you fall into. You can try both and you'll very quickly find which works best for you. And then that's the kind of path that you use. So it's like one of those, those fantasy books where you make your own story up as you go along. Well, this is like where you make up the own story of your brand new life, where you let go of all those worries, fears, that apprehension, stresses, self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, and all the other shit of the past that's been weighing you down without you even knowing it, and let go of all those mini traumas of frozen in time. And that's what it's about, reprogramming that computer. And one of the massive things of that is, there's numerous things in here, but one of the real massive things, I should have put a bookmark in, really, I apologise, is the picture of the baby there. That chapter is making peace with and healing your inner child, metaphorically. And there is a QR code where we go through a session where you metaphorically go through and you get a big pillow or a cushion that you're going to hold on to while your eyes are closed, so that with your imagination can represent the mini you, baby age, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on through to teenage years, where you can then give the reassurance to the mini you that the mini you, if they've been given that assurance and the right thing said to them at that time, and it's not that your parents purposely did wrong, it's just that parents don't perceive it as being as traumatic as losing a family member or friend when the red balloon pops. But it is, but you can go back and give the mini you that's frozen in time the reassurance it needs, and then they will just feel like a sense of relief and let go of all that self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, frustration, and confusion that's been loitering there and affecting you without you even realizing it. And then you'll find that you've got more positivity, more focus, more resilience, more willpower, and all these positive character traits. And as a knock-on effect, you'll find that that little voice in your head stops saying as many negative things to you. We all have time still where we'll have self-doubt, but you'll find the majority of the time you're getting positive things. Well done, pats on the back. And that all leads to a far more harmonious state of mind and body, which can lead to improved physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual well-being and health, which pure common sense tells you is going to help you in so many ways to be more efficient in all areas of your business. And just the way you interact with people, you'll have far more tolerance and awareness because you won't be so distracted. And then that'll have a snowball effect because as you start to see things differently and do things differently, you'll start to get different, more positive and impactful results. And it reflects back and it becomes a snowball that builds up momentum. So little actions every day, which you've got to start doing something. Let me just say, don't bother buying this book if you're one of those people who buy books, read them and go, oh, that seems like a great idea. I must do that. And then never does it. Because masturbating, well, is bloody useless. He's going to get you nowhere. Or
like
if you're one of those
term.
people
I'm going to adopt that term, masturbating. I like that.
Or the other, or if you're one of those people who read something and they go, I should do that. Well, no, then you're shoulding all over yourself. Almost sounds like shitting all over, but it is. That's, masturbating and shoulding all over yourself. No good. They say knowledge is power. That isn't true. You'll read this, you'll have the knowledge to change your life. But unless you take action and apply that knowledge, then it isn't power. The truth is it's applied knowledge that is power. You've got to take action and do something. But I hold you by the hand and make it as easy as possible because of those things, the QR codes. I'm there I'm not metaphorically, I'm there with you virtually online to guide you through, give you that pat on the back, give you the reassurance everything's going to be okay. You are worthwhile. Don't listen to the nasty little voice in your head. Let's do some things and then we can get rid of Mr. Nasty or Mrs. Nasty, and we can have the good voice come in. So
Jonathan, it's been an absolute enthralling time with you. I've like just listening to you, and yes, it's so powerfully spoken, well spoken. So I don't know. I can't. It's indescribable. It was so good. Got a lot of
no worries. I mean, it's one of the things. Look around you. If people have any doubts, look around you and ask yourself one question: what is the difference between the person born on a poor council housing estate in poverty and the person born into a family with a silver spoon in their mouth with riches? Now,
opportunity.
There are exceptions.
It is.
The only real difference is that the person with the silver spoon in their mouth will come on a daily basis and be conditioned to the belief system that they can have pretty much anything they want in the world like that. And I know not everyone does this from those backgrounds. So, I'm not saying that everyone from those backgrounds are self-entitled pricks. No, I'm not. But there are a lot of self-entitled pricks from those kind of backgrounds out there because of their upbringing and conditioning. And to make it more annoying to a lot of people who observe that, these self-entitled pricks always sooner or later seem to get what they want. Well, the key is it's because they believe they deserve it. Now, you don't have to be a self-entitled prick in the manner you go about doing it. But in the council estate thing, quite often it's an environment of you're not good enough, or you're not worthy of this, the conditioning that goes in. So those programs are running in your unconscious mind. And whatever conscious effort you make to overcome that, if the negative programs are still running in the computer, it will ultimately self-sabotage you. So you might become the millionaire, but then you lose it all or whatever. The only way to sustainably, long-term achieve and keep and grow is when the programs running in your unconscious are in harmony with your conscious desires, not in conflict. And if you were unfortunate, or right, that's debatable. I was going to say unfortunate enough not to grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth, but some would argue that it's better not to, and to then do the work on yourself to reprogram your beliefs. But which you can, and there's techniques for doing that in hypnosis, to reprogram your belief system in the computer, so you end up running the software that says you're worthy, the same software, but without the arrogant prick side effects that the lucky elite grow up with. Because that's all it is. If you install the right software into your laptop, it can do things that other person's amazing laptop can do. But until you put that software in, it'll be impossible for that to happen. And metaphorically, so it is with your mind. It has to be in your mind first, the computer, before it can become physical manifestation and reality in the world, whether that's in your personal life or, of course, in your business.
Absolutely. Jonathan, where can people find you if they'd like to work with you, or even indeed buy your book?
Well, the book, you just go on Amazon and type in Hypnosis, and it's there. It's like £14.70 United Kingdom sterling, which is 17 American dollars. Sorry, I've not looked at Amazon or Australia, but Amazon or all major bookstores, you'll find it, Hypnosis, Jonathan Royle. If they want to contact me, if they want to learn hypnotherapy, or they want to learn hypnotic techniques for writing sales letters to get more sales conversions, or all manner of bunch of things, the one main kind of portal is a website, Magical Guru, which is magicalguru.co.uk. On there's my career resume, but at the top there's a bit that says about Royle, and if you click on there's all the links to my different social media accounts, albeit that you can pretty much find them easily because they're all at Royle, Royle Hypnotist.
Perfect. Absolutely. Loved our conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on, Rose. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.
Thank you. Take care.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.